Nathan Brooks had spent most of his adult life fixing things. Furnaces, broken compressors, dead air conditioning units during Idaho heat waves. If something stopped working, people called Nathan because he knew how to bring it back to life. But sitting in his living room that October night, he understood there were some things a man could not repair once they cracked. Upstairs, Claire turned off the shower. Nathan quickly locked her phone and placed it exactly where it had been on the couch cushion beside him. His hands shook hard enough that Ethan stirred against his chest with a sleepy little grunt. "Easy, buddy," Nathan whispered automatically. His body still knew how to be a father, even while his mind felt like it was collapsing. The bathroom fan hummed upstairs. Drawers opened and closed. Claire moved around their bedroom, getting ready for bed like any normal night. Except nothing felt normal anymore. Nathan carried Ethan into the kitchen and began warming a bottle by pure muscle memory. Formula powder, warm water, shake gently. Test temperature against wrist. Routine. That was the strangest part of betrayal. Ordinary life kept moving while your insides quietly fell apart. The kitchen smelled faintly like coffee grounds and dish soap. Family photos covered the refrigerator beside magnets from old vacations they could barely afford back then. 18 years. 18 years with Claire. He remembered their tiny first apartment above a hardware store in downtown Boise. They'd used lawn chairs as dining room furniture because they were broke and too proud to ask for help. Back then, Claire used to laugh at everything. She used to fall asleep on his shoulder during movies. When had that version of them disappeared? Nathan fed Ethan slowly beneath the dim kitchen light while questions kept multiplying inside his head. Victor Langford, regional sales director, expensive suits, polished smile, black luxury SUV. Nathan had met him twice, once at a company Christmas dinner, again at the hospital after Ethan's birth. Victor had brought flowers and joked that Ethan already looked stubborn like his mother. At the time, Nathan thought he was just another corporate guy trying too hard to seem charming. Now, every memory felt contaminated. Upstairs, footsteps crossed the bedroom floor. Nathan's pulse jumped instantly. He looked down at Ethan. The baby stared back at him with sleepy blue eyes, completely trusting. Nathan suddenly realized he needed to know the truth, no matter how badly it hurt. He opened Facebook with trembling fingers and typed in Marianne Langford. Victor's wife. Her profile picture showed a woman around Nathan's age, standing beside a lake somewhere in Montana, holding the leash of an old golden retriever. She looked kind, normal, like someone who had absolutely no idea her entire life might already be falling apart. Nathan stared at the message box for nearly a full minute. He could still stop this, still pretend he had never seen anything, still protect whatever remained of his marriage. Then Ethan made a tiny sleepy sound in his arms. Something inside Nathan hardened. He attached the screenshots. Underneath them, he typed only 6 words. "You deserve to know the truth." Then he pressed send, and upstairs, completely unaware, Claire Brooks softly hummed while drying her hair. Nathan Brooks had spent most of his adult life fixing things. Furnaces, broken compressors, dead air conditioning units during Idaho heat waves. If something stopped working, people called Nathan because he knew how to bring it back to life. But sitting in his living room that October night, he understood there were some things a man could not repair once they cracked. Upstairs, Claire turned off the shower. Nathan quickly locked her phone and placed it exactly where it had been on the couch cushion beside him. His hands shook hard enough that Ethan stirred against his chest with a sleepy little grunt. "Easy, buddy," Nathan whispered automatically. His body still knew how to be a father, even while his mind felt like it was collapsing. The bathroom fan hummed upstairs. Drawers opened and closed. Claire moved around their bedroom, getting ready for bed like any normal night. Except nothing felt normal anymore. Nathan carried Ethan into the kitchen and began warming a bottle by pure muscle memory. Formula powder, warm water, shake gently. Test temperature against wrist. Routine. That was the strangest part of betrayal. Ordinary life kept moving while your insides quietly fell apart. The kitchen smelled faintly like coffee grounds and dish soap. Family photos covered the refrigerator beside magnets from old vacations they could barely afford back then. 18 years. 18 years with Claire. He remembered their tiny first apartment above a hardware store in downtown Boise. They'd used lawn chairs as dining room furniture because they were broke and too proud to ask for help. Back then, Claire used to laugh at everything. She used to fall asleep on his shoulder during movies. When had that version of them disappeared? Nathan fed Ethan slowly beneath the dim kitchen light, while questions kept multiplying inside his head. Victor Langford, regional sales director. Expensive suits, polished smile, black luxury SUV. Nathan had met him twice, once at a company Christmas dinner, again at the hospital after Ethan's birth. Victor had brought flowers and joked that Ethan already looked stubborn like his mother. At the time, Nathan thought he was just another corporate guy trying too hard to seem charming. Now every memory felt contaminated. Upstairs, footsteps crossed the bedroom floor. Nathan's pulse jumped instantly. He looked down at Ethan. The baby stared back at him with sleepy blue eyes, completely trusting. Nathan suddenly realized he needed to know the truth, no matter how badly it hurt. He opened Facebook with trembling fingers and typed in Marianne Langford, Victor's wife. Her profile picture showed a woman around Nathan's age standing beside a lake somewhere in Montana, holding the leash of an old golden retriever. She looked kind, normal, like someone who had absolutely no idea her entire life might already be falling apart. Nathan stared at the message box for nearly a full minute. He could still stop this. Still pretend he had never seen anything. Still protect whatever remained of his marriage. Then Ethan made a tiny sleepy sound in his arms. Something inside Nathan hardened. He attached the screenshots. Underneath them, he typed only 6 words. You deserve to know the truth. Then he pressed send. And upstairs, completely unaware, Claire Brooks softly hummed while drying her hair. 32 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Nathan nearly dropped the baby bottle. Upstairs, Claire called casually. Nathan, can you get that? His throat tightened. Yeah, he answered. He walked slowly toward the front door while Ethan rested against his shoulder, warm and impossibly small. Every step felt unreal, like he was moving through someone else's life. Cold, October air rushed inside the moment he opened the door. A woman stood on the porch wearing jeans, white sneakers, and a navy sweatshirt. Her mascara had smeared beneath both eyes like she'd either been crying or trying very hard not to. In one hand, she held an iPad. The other hand trembled slightly. For a second, neither of them spoke. Then she said quietly, I'm Marianne Langford. Nathan nodded once. And I think we've both been lied to. Behind him upstairs, Claire continued humming softly while opening and closing dresser drawers. The normalness of it made Nathan feel sick. Ethan suddenly started crying in his arms, sharp little newborn cries echoing through the hallway. Marianne looked at the baby immediately, and somehow that made the situation feel devastatingly real. Not the screenshots, not the deleted messages, the crying baby between them. Come in, Nathan said hoarsely. Marianne stepped carefully inside the house like she wasn't sure she belonged there. Nathan carried Ethan into the kitchen while Marianne followed quietly behind him. The kitchen lights suddenly felt too bright. You want me to warm the bottle? Marianne asked softly. Nathan blinked at her in surprise. Then he handed it over without speaking. Funny how basic human instinct still survived even in terrible moments. Marianne warmed the bottle while Nathan bounced Ethan gently against his shoulder. The baby's cries slowly softened into sleepy hiccups. For almost a full minute, neither adult spoke. Finally, Marianne placed the warm bottle beside him and quietly slid the iPad across the kitchen table. I found more, she said. Nathan's stomach dropped instantly. How much more? Marianne gave a tired laugh that didn't sound remotely amused. You got maybe 5%? Nathan sat down slowly. Marianne unlocked the iPad. Thousands of messages appeared. Not dozens, thousands. Months of conversations. Photos, hotel confirmations, inside jokes, voice messages. Nathan felt his throat tighten. One message immediately caught his attention. Victor, tell our little linebacker I'm buying him football tickets someday. Claire, only if Nathan doesn't bore him to death first. Nathan stared at the screen without breathing. Then another. Victor, did he finally stop crying at 2 a.m.? Claire, he sleeps better when you hold him. That one hurt the worst. Not because it confirmed the affair, because it confirmed intimacy, routine, domestic familiarity. This wasn't some reckless mistake in a hotel room. Victor had somehow inserted himself into Nathan's family life, into Ethan's life. Marianne kept scrolling quietly. There are hotel receipts too, she whispered. She opened another folder. Conference weekends, fake business trips, luxury hotel bookings in Portland and Salt Lake City. Nathan recognized several dates immediately. One trip happened during a mandatory training seminar. Another occurred only 2 weeks after Ethan was born. 2 weeks. Nathan physically leaned back in his chair. At that point, Claire could barely walk comfortably after childbirth. He'd been downstairs changing diapers at 3 a.m. while she recovered upstairs. And somehow Victor had already returned to her life. Marianne studied Nathan carefully. You okay? Nathan let out a dry laugh. No. Then after a pause, but I'm not going to punch a wall if that's what you're asking. That earned the tiniest smile from her all night. Marianne rubbed her forehead tiredly. I found out 3 months ago, she admitted quietly. Nathan looked up sharply. You knew? I suspected before that. But 3 months ago, I knew. Then why stay? The question came out harsher than intended. Marianne didn't seem offended. Instead, she looked around the kitchen quietly. Ethan's bottles drying near the sink. Family photographs. Tiny baby socks folded on the counter. Then she said something that completely shut Nathan up. Because after 30 years with somebody, leaving isn't just leaving. Nathan looked down at Ethan sleeping against his arm. And for the first time that night, he understood exactly what she meant. Marianne slowly scrolled farther through the messages. Then Nathan saw the sentence that made ice flood his chest. Claire. Nathan still thinks Ethan looks exactly like him. Nathan gripped the edge of the table so hard his knuckles turned white. Marianne saw his expression immediately. I'm sorry. Nathan shook his head slowly. No, he whispered. Don't apologize for telling me the truth. But deep inside, another terrible thought had already taken root. What if Victor believed Ethan was his son because Claire had let him believe it too? The DNA test kit arrived 3 days later in a plain brown box sitting beside a case of formula near the front porch. Claire carried both inside without noticing the label. More HVAC parts? She asked casually while setting the package on the kitchen counter. Nathan forced himself not to hesitate. Something like that? The lie bothered him afterward. Nathan Brooks had never been particularly good at lying. Not to customers, not to family, and certainly not to Claire. But suddenly their entire marriage felt built on lies anyway. The next 10 days became the longest stretch of his life. Not because anything dramatic happened. Because everything did. Claire still kissed his cheek before work every morning. She still folded laundry while humming softly under her breath. She still asked if he remembered to pay the electric bill. Normal marriage things. But once suspicion entered a relationship, ordinary moments became unbearable. Nathan started noticing everything. Claire smiling down at her phone while making coffee. Claire taking calls outside on the patio. Claire turning her screen away slightly whenever he walked past. Tiny movements, tiny hesitations, tiny fractures. At night, Ethan still woke every few hours crying for a bottle. Nathan often volunteered to handle it before Claire could even sit up in bed. Partly because she looked exhausted. Mostly because he needed the time alone with the baby. One night, around 2 a.m, Nathan sat in the recliner downstairs feeding Ethan while cold rain tapped softly against the living room windows. The house smelled faintly like formula and coffee grounds. Ethan blinked sleepily up at him. Tiny fingers wrapped around Nathan's thumb with complete trust. Nathan suddenly felt tears burning behind his eyes, because regardless of biology, regardless of betrayal, he already loved this little boy so completely it terrified him. That realization hurt almost worse than the affair itself. "If you're not mine," Nathan whispered shakily, "I don't know how I survived that." Ethan simply yawned and drifted back to sleep against his chest. The next morning, Claire found Nathan asleep in the recliner, still holding the baby. Her expression softened instantly. "You're such a good dad," she whispered. Nathan nearly broke apart right there. Instead, he only nodded and reached for his coffee. That became the hardest part of those 10 days. Not anger, pretending he didn't know. Pretending he wasn't studying Claire's face every time she entered a room. Pretending their marriage didn't suddenly feel unstable beneath his feet. Meanwhile, his work started slipping. Nathan missed a customer appointment for the first time in nearly 7 years. Mrs. Whitmore from Silver Pine Drive actually called asking if he was feeling all right. "You never forget appointments, Nathan." He blamed lack of sleep from the baby, which technically wasn't a lie. One Thursday afternoon, Nathan came home early after a canceled service call. Claire stood outside on the back patio, speaking quietly into her phone. Nathan wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but then he heard Victor's name. His entire body froze instantly. Claire's voice sounded tense. "No, listen to me," she whispered sharply. "If Nathan finds out everything, we're both screwed." Silence. Then, "I know what you promised." Another pause. "I can't talk right now." Claire suddenly turned and saw Nathan standing inside near the sliding glass door. For half a second, panic flashed openly across her face. Then it vanished. Too quickly. "Hey," she said, forcing a smile. "You're home early." "Canceled appointment." Claire nodded too fast. "That was my sister." Nathan looked directly into her eyes, and for the first time in 18 years of marriage, he knew with absolute certainty his wife was lying to him. Oddly enough, the realization wasn't explosive. It was quiet, like something inside him slowly sinking lower and lower. That night, after Claire fell asleep beside him, Nathan lay awake, staring into the darkness, while Ethan's baby monitor crackled softly on the nightstand. The DNA results could arrive any day now, and Nathan realized something terrifying. He no longer knew which answer would hurt more. The DNA results arrived on a gray Tuesday afternoon. Nathan knew what the envelope was the moment he saw it sitting among advertisements and utility bills inside the mailbox. His chest tightened instantly. For almost 30 seconds, he simply stood there at the curb, staring at it, while cold Idaho wind rustled through the trees lining the neighborhood. Then, Ethan started fussing softly from the back seat of the truck. Reality returned all at once. Nathan grabbed the envelope quickly and climbed back into the driver's seat. He couldn't open it at home. He couldn't sit across from Claire at the kitchen table, pretending everything was normal, while holding something capable of destroying his entire life. So he drove, southbound, no destination in mind. The heater hummed softly while country music played low through the speakers. Outside, October clouds hung heavy over the highway. Eventually, Nathan pulled into the parking lot of a Freddy's Frozen Custard and Steak Burgers near the interstate. Teenagers in red uniforms moved lazily between parked cars carrying trash bags. The smell of fried food drifted through the cold air. Normal life. Everybody else's world kept moving, while his stood completely still. Nathan turned off the engine. His hands shook violently, opening the envelope. For one horrible second, he couldn't force himself to unfold the paper inside. Then he finally looked down. Probability of paternity. 99.99%. Nathan stared at the words without breathing. Then read them again. And again. Ethan was his son. His. The relief hit first. Massive. Overwhelming. So powerful, Nathan bent forward against the steering wheel as tears burst out of him before he could stop them. A broken sound escaped his throat. Not graceful crying. Not cinematic. Pure exhaustion leaving his body all at once. A teenage employee walking outside glanced toward the truck with concern before awkwardly looking away again. Nathan laughed shakily through tears. Ethan was his. Nothing would ever change that. But after the relief came something darker. Anger. Real anger. Because Claire had cheated. Claire had lied. And somehow, she had still allowed Nathan to spend 10 days wondering whether the baby he already loved, more than anything, belonged to another man. That part cut deepest. Nathan sat there for nearly 15 minutes, trying to steady himself before finally reaching for his phone. Marianne answered immediately. "Well?" she asked quietly. Nathan swallowed hard. "He's mine." A long breath escaped her. "Oh, thank God." Nathan leaned back against the seat. "Yeah," he muttered bitterly. "Thank God." But even as he said it, he realized the DNA results fixed almost nothing. The betrayal still existed. Maybe worse now, because now this wasn't about uncertainty anymore. It was about the fact Claire had risked destroying everything they built together. Marianne stayed quiet for a moment before speaking again. "There's more happening." Nathan gave a tired laugh. "Of course there is." Victor's company started auditing expense reports. Nathan frowned. "What?" "He's under internal review. Fake travel reimbursements, hotel charges, conference expenses that apparently never existed." Nathan stared out the windshield silently. "Interesting," Marianne continued. "He's getting sloppy too. Nervous." How nervous?" For the first time in days, Marianne actually sounded amused. Yesterday, he accidentally sent a flirty voice message to his office fantasy football group chat. Nathan blinked. "You're kidding!" Half the sales department heard him call Claire baby. Despite everything, Nathan snorted quietly. Not because it was funny. Because cracks were finally starting to spread through Victor Langford's perfect corporate image. Nathan rubbed both hands over his face tiredly. "What happens now?" Marianne hesitated. Then she said carefully, "1 week from Saturday, Victor's receiving a leadership award at a charity gala in Salt Lake City." Nathan frowned. "So? Auditors will be there too." Silence settled between them. Nathan suddenly understood exactly what Marianne was implying. This wasn't just an affair anymore. Victor Langford's entire world might be about to collapse. And for the first time since discovering the texts, Nathan felt something dangerous begin forming quietly inside him. Not heartbreak, not grief, something colder. The desire to stop protecting people who never protected him. Nathan almost backed out 3 different times that week. The first time happened while he sat alone in his office above the garage reviewing payroll numbers. One technician had called in sick. Another service van needed brake repairs. Ethan had barely slept the night before. Normal life kept piling on top of betrayal, like nothing had changed. Nathan stared at Marianne's last text message glowing on his phone. "Auditors confirmed attendance Saturday." He locked the screen without replying. Part of him still wanted to walk away from all of it. Not for Victor, for Claire. Because 18 years of marriage didn't disappear overnight no matter how badly someone hurt you. Nathan still remembered holding Claire's hand during failed IVF appointments in Boise clinics. He remembered giving her hormone injections because her hands shook too badly to do it herself. He remembered sitting beside her in silence after another negative pregnancy test, while she quietly cried against his chest. People liked pretending betrayal erased every good memory before it. It didn't. That was what made it so painful. Saturday arrived cold and rainy. Nathan stood in the kitchen, feeding Ethan mashed bananas while football highlights played softly on television. Ethan wore a tiny blue sleeper covered in little helmets and somehow managed to smear banana across Nathan's entire sleeve. Nathan laughed automatically, then immediately felt guilty for laughing at all. Upstairs, Claire moved around their bedroom, getting ready for the gala. Nathan heard drawers opening and closet doors sliding. A few minutes later, she walked downstairs, wearing a dark green dress Nathan had never seen before. Simple, elegant. Her blonde hair curled softly around her shoulders. And for one dangerous second, she looked exactly like the woman he married at 23 years old. The sight physically hurt him. Claire fastened an earring while glancing toward him. You sure you don't want to come tonight? She asked casually. Spouses are invited. Nathan kept wiping banana from Ethan's hands. Nah, somebody's got to stay with this little man. Claire smiled faintly. You've been distant lately. There it was. Nathan finally looked at her directly. For a brief moment, neither of them spoke. Nathan wondered if she knew he knew. If somewhere deep inside, guilt had already started connecting the pieces. But Claire simply looked tired, tense, like someone carrying too many secrets at once. Work's been rough, Nathan answered quietly. Claire nodded too quickly. That's all? Nathan almost laughed. Instead, he shrugged and focused back on Ethan. Claire walked over slowly and kissed Ethan's forehead. Then Nathan's. The familiar gesture nearly shattered him. Don't stay up too late, she said softly. 3 minutes later, the front door closed behind her. Silence settled across the house. Nathan stared at the empty driveway while Ethan chewed happily on a plastic giraffe toy in his high chair. Then his phone buzzed. Marianne. If you're coming, now's the time. Nathan looked at Ethan again. At the tiny boy who had unknowingly become the center of an adult disaster he couldn't possibly understand. Something inside Nathan finally settled. Not rage. Not revenge. Clarity. By 7 o'clock, Ethan was safely at Olivia Bennett's house across town. By 7:30, Nathan was driving south through cold rain towards Salt Lake City. The farther he drove, the tighter his chest became. The windshield wipers moved steadily back and forth while headlights blurred across wet highway pavement. Nathan kept thinking the same thing over and over. You can still turn around. Nobody's forcing this. But he didn't. Downtown Salt Lake City glowed gold beneath the rain when he finally arrived. Luxury hotels rose against the dark skyline while valet attendants hurried guests beneath umbrellas. Nathan parked across the street from the Grand America Hotel and sat silently inside his truck. He looked at his reflection in the rearview mirror. 52 years old, blue-collar HVAC owner, wearing the same charcoal suit he usually saved for funerals and weddings. For a moment, he almost laughed at how absurd this entire situation felt. Then he saw Claire through the hotel entrance windows, standing beside Victor Langford, laughing at something he said. Comfortable, familiar, like their affair existed in a completely different reality from the shattered life Nathan had been living for weeks. And suddenly, Nathan realized something that hurt worse than the cheating itself. Claire hadn't just betrayed him. She had continued smiling while doing it. Marianne found Nathan standing near the registration desk 20 minutes later. You came? She said softly. Nathan gave a tired nod, still deciding if that was a smart decision. For the first time since meeting her, Marianne almost smiled. The ballroom behind them glowed with expensive warmth. Crystal chandeliers reflected across polished marble floors, while soft jazz drifted through the crowded room. Men in tailored suits laughed beside silent auction tables. Women carrying champagne glasses mingled beneath banners supporting children's hospitals and corporate sponsors. Nathan suddenly felt painfully out of place. He adjusted the sleeves of his charcoal suit uncomfortably. Marianne noticed. You look fine, she whispered. Nathan glanced toward the ballroom entrance again. Claire stood beside Victor near the bar, speaking with several executives. Victor rested one hand casually near the small of her back while she laughed politely at something another guest said. The sight hit Nathan harder than expected, not because they looked romantic, because they looked practiced, comfortable, like this version of them had existed for a long time. Marianne quietly followed Nathan's gaze. You don't have to do this tonight, she said carefully. Nathan stared at Victor. Then he remembered sitting alone in his truck opening DNA results while wondering if his son belonged to another man. Yeah, Nathan answered quietly. I do. Around 8:30, Victor finally spotted them. The reaction happened instantly. His confident smile faltered for less than a second before returning smoothly into place. But Nathan saw it. Panic. Victor excused himself from the group and walked toward them carrying a whiskey glass. Claire turned at the same moment. The color immediately drained from her face. Nathan? She said softly. Victor recovered faster. Well? He said carefully, forcing a polite smile. This is unexpected. No kidding? Marianne replied coldly. Victor's eyes moved quickly between all three of them. Calculating. Always calculating. What exactly is this? He asked quietly. Nathan answered before Marianne could. A conversation. Victor's jaw tightened slightly. Not here. Nathan almost laughed. Suddenly, Victor cared about privacy. Claire stepped closer carefully. Nathan, she whispered. What's going on? Nathan looked at her for a long second, then calmly held up one hand. Not now. The hurt on Claire's face appeared immediate and genuine. Oddly enough, that hurt Nathan too. Victor forced another smile toward nearby guests passing through the hallway. Then he leaned closer toward Nathan. Can we speak privately? A few minutes later, Victor led Nathan into a quiet hallway near the elevators. The moment they were alone, Victor's entire personality shifted. The polished executive tone disappeared instantly. Look, he said quietly, rubbing his forehead. Whatever Claire told you, she didn't tell me anything. Victor stopped speaking. Nathan watched calculations happening behind his eyes again. Then came the sentence that permanently erased any possibility Nathan would ever pity him. Name your number. Nathan blinked slowly. What? Victor lowered his voice further. You're upset. I understand that, but ugly divorces help nobody. Nathan stared at him in disbelief. Not because Victor offered money, because he honestly believed money solved things like this. My son is 3 months old, Nathan said quietly. Victor sighed impatiently. Daniel. Nathan. Victor barely acknowledged the correction. Let's not make this emotional. That sentence nearly made Nathan hit him. Nearly. Instead, Nathan slowly slipped his hand into his coat pocket and pressed record on his phone. Victor kept talking. There are ways everybody walks away cleaner here. Cleaner? Nathan repeated softly. Yes, Nathan nodded slowly like he was considering it. Meanwhile, every word recorded clearly inside his pocket. Then footsteps echoed down the hallway. 2 people turned the corner wearing corporate conference badges. Victor stiffened immediately. Victor Langford? The older man asked politely. Victor's face changed color. We just need clarification regarding several reimbursement reports before Monday. Silence. Heavy and immediate. Victor forced another smile. Of course. Happy to help. The woman beside the auditor glanced briefly toward Nathan standing against the wall. Then toward Marianne farther down the hallway. Then toward Claire waiting anxiously near the ballroom entrance. And suddenly, something invisible shifted in the air. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like ice beginning to crack beneath someone's feet. Victor straightened his tie carefully, but Nathan noticed sweat beginning to form near his temples for the very first time all night. And somehow, that tiny detail satisfied him more than it should have. The ballroom continued humming behind them, while Victor stood trapped in the hallway between Nathan, Marianne, and the auditors. Soft jazz still floated through the hotel speakers. Champagne glasses still clinked somewhere nearby. But beneath the polished surface of the evening, everything had changed. The older auditor opened a folder calmly. We're simply trying to reconcile several inconsistencies in your reimbursement reports, he explained professionally. Victor adjusted his tie again. I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation. His voice sounded tighter now, less polished. The confidence that once surrounded him so effortlessly had started cracking. Claire slowly approached from the ballroom entrance, arms folded tightly across herself. Her eyes immediately found Nathan, not Victor. Nathan noticed that. For one dangerous moment, pity flickered inside him. Claire looked exhausted beneath the makeup. Dark circles hid beneath her eyes. Weeks of stress had clearly worn her down. Then Marianne stepped forward quietly and handed the auditors a sealed envelope. Victor's entire body stiffened. Marianne, he warned sharply. She ignored him completely. The female auditor opened the envelope slightly and glanced inside. Hotel receipts, printed emails, transfer records, expense statements. Nathan watched the exact second real panic finally hit Victor Langford. Not fear of losing Claire, not fear of hurting his marriage, fear of consequences. That told Nathan everything he needed to know about the man. Several nearby executives had started noticing something was wrong. Conversations softened. Curious glances drifted toward the hallway. Nobody fully understood the situation yet, but people always sensed disaster before they understood it. Claire stepped closer carefully. "Nathan," she whispered shakily. He looked at her calmly. "Yes?" Tears immediately filled her eyes. That surprised him more than anything. Victor suddenly snapped. "This is getting blown completely out of proportion." One auditor slowly raised an eyebrow. Victor gestured irritably toward Claire without even looking at her. "She's replaceable. None of this was worth this level of insanity." Silence slammed through the hallway. Claire looked physically struck. Nathan actually saw the moment something shattered inside her. "You told me you loved me," she whispered. Victor gave a short, irritated laugh. "Claire, please." And just like that, every remaining hesitation inside Nathan disappeared. Not because Victor betrayed him. Because after destroying 2 marriages and dragging a baby into the middle of everything, Victor still viewed people like disposable objects. Nathan slowly pulled his phone from his pocket. Then he pressed play. Victor's recorded voice quietly filled the hallway. "There are ways everybody walks away cleaner here." Nobody moved. The auditors exchanged a quick glance. Victor's face drained white. Nathan slipped the phone back into his pocket calmly. Then he finally looked directly at Claire. "I stood beside you through every failed treatment," he said quietly. Claire covered her mouth instantly as tears spilled down her cheeks. Nathan continued softly. "Every appointment, every injection, every night you cried, believing your body failed you." Claire nodded once, unable to speak. The ballroom noise suddenly felt very far away. "And somehow," Nathan whispered, "I became the last person who knew what was happening inside my own marriage." Claire broke completely after that. Not dramatic sobbing, just quiet devastation. Even Marianne looked away for a second. The older auditor cleared his throat awkwardly. "Mr. Langford," he said carefully, "we'll require a formal meeting Monday morning." Victor straightened immediately. "You're seriously doing this here?" The female auditor answered calmly. "You created the situation, sir." That shut him up. A hotel security manager quietly appeared several minutes later after someone from corporate requested assistance. No shouting, no public scene, just soft professional voices and controlled humiliation. Victor looked at Claire one final time before leaving. Not regret. Resentment. That seemed to hurt her more than anything else. Nathan watched Victor disappear down the hallway beside hotel staff and company executives while conversations slowly resumed around the ballroom. The jazz pianist near the bar never stopped playing. Life rarely paused for heartbreak. Marianne exhaled shakily beside him. "I thought this would feel better," she admitted quietly. Nathan understood exactly what she meant. Because standing there beneath expensive chandeliers, while Victor Langford's life collapsed around him, Nathan didn't feel victorious. He felt exhausted. Claire wiped tears from her face and looked toward Nathan again. "Please," she whispered. Nathan held her gaze for several seconds, then finally said the words both of them had been avoiding for weeks. "Let's go outside." Cold night air hit Nathan the moment they stepped outside the hotel. Rain had finally stopped, but the sidewalks still shimmered beneath downtown lights. Valet attendants hurried between expensive cars, while traffic rolled steadily through the wet streets of Salt Lake City. For a long moment, neither Nathan nor Claire spoke. Claire wrapped her arms tightly around herself, shoulders trembling beneath the dark green dress. Nathan stared out toward the street. He suddenly felt very old, very tired. Behind them, the charity gala continued as if nothing had happened. Music still drifted faintly through the hotel doors. People still laughed upstairs over champagne and auction tables. The world kept moving. It always did. Finally, Claire whispered, "I never wanted this." Nathan let out a hollow laugh. "Really?" Claire flinched. Tears slid quietly down her cheeks again. "It started during IVF," she admitted softly. Nathan stayed silent. Claire swallowed hard before continuing. "You pulled away." Nathan looked at her sharply. "I was working 12-hour days trying to pay for treatments." "I know." Claire said quickly. I know that now, but back then, everything became schedules and disappointment and hormones and bills. We stopped feeling like us. Nathan rubbed both hands over his face tiredly. He remembered those years too clearly. The Boise fertility clinic waiting rooms, the injections, the failed procedures, the quiet drives home afterward. He remembered Claire crying in the bathroom after another negative pregnancy test, while he stood outside the door feeling helpless. We were drowning, Claire whispered. Nathan stared at the glowing hotel windows. And Victor rescued you? Claire closed her eyes briefly. No, she admitted. He listened. There it was, the oldest story in the world. Nathan nodded slowly. He made you feel seen. Claire's silence confirmed it. For a moment, neither of them spoke again. Nathan suddenly remembered their first apartment above the hardware store downtown. They had eaten frozen pizza sitting on lawn chairs because they couldn't afford real furniture yet. Claire used to dance with him in the kitchen while cheap country songs played through a radio with bad speakers. 18 years. Vacations. Christmas mornings. Funerals. Shared debt. Shared dreams. The birth of Ethan. An entire life. And somehow, it had still ended here beneath cold hotel lights. Claire wiped at her tears shakily. I still love you. Nathan looked at her for a very long time. Maybe she believed that. Maybe part of it was even true. But something inside him had changed permanently the moment he held his son, wondering whether he belonged to another man. Finally, Nathan spoke quietly. Love without loyalty becomes something else eventually. Claire broke down crying harder after that. But she didn't argue, because deep down she knew he was right. A cold wind moved through the street between them. Nathan suddenly realized neither of them had the strength left to keep pretending anymore. Claire looked small standing there beneath the hotel lights. Not evil. Not monstrous. Just broken. And somehow that made everything sadder. I never meant to destroy us, she whispered. Nathan nodded slowly. I know. That was the tragic part. He genuinely believed her. People rarely set out intending to ruin their own lives. Usually destruction happened one compromise at a time until suddenly there was no path back. Nathan looked down at the wet pavement for several seconds before finally saying the sentence both of them had feared from the beginning. I think we need to separate. Claire closed her eyes immediately. For one terrible moment, Nathan thought she might argue. Instead, she only nodded once, slowly, like someone accepting a truth they already knew was coming. More tears slid down her face. Nathan felt his own chest tighten painfully, not because he doubted the decision, because 18 years could not disappear in one night, no matter how badly they ended. Claire finally looked up at him again. What happens now? Nathan thought about Ethan sleeping safely at Olivia's house, then about the empty silence waiting for both of them after tonight. I honestly don't know, he admitted, and for the first time in weeks, it was the complete truth. 1 year later, Nathan's house sounded different. Quieter, not empty exactly, just rearranged. Every other week, 15-month-old Ethan filled the place with cartoons, toy trucks, mashed bananas, and tiny sneakers that somehow always ended up in impossible locations. Then Ethan would go back to Claire's townhouse in Provo for several days, and suddenly the silence returned again. The refrigerator humming, the furnace kicking on at night, the dishwasher running like distant company. Nobody talked enough about that part of divorce after 50, the silence. You spent decades adjusting yourself around another person's breathing, routines, television habits, coffee preferences. Then one day, you stood alone in your kitchen reheating leftover chili while rain tapped against the windows. Nathan still struggled with that sometimes, especially after Ethan fell asleep. That was usually when the memories returned. Not dramatic ones. Small things. Claire laughing in the kitchen years ago. Claire asleep against his shoulder during road trips. Claire crying when they finally heard Ethan's heartbeat for the first time. Those memories hurt differently now. Less sharp. More sad. The divorce itself stayed surprisingly civil. No screaming courtroom battles. No vicious fights over furniture or savings accounts. Just two exhausted adults sitting through mediation sessions in Boise, trying not to damage their son any more than they already had. Claire eventually accepted a remote position with a smaller medical supplier based in Colorado. Victor Langford lost almost everything within 6 months. First, his executive position disappeared. Then the expense fraud investigation deepened. Apparently, once auditors started digging, several former employees came forward with stories about fake reimbursements and misused company funds stretching back years. The affair itself became almost secondary. Funny how companies often tolerated immoral behavior much faster than stolen money. Marianne eventually moved to Nevada to live near her sister. She and Nathan still texted occasionally. Mostly harmless things. Weather complaints. Dog photos? Updates about life. There was something strangely permanent about surviving betrayal beside another person. Even after the anger faded, a quiet understanding remained. Around springtime, Nathan started sleeping better. Not every night, but better. He returned to fishing again, driving early Saturday mornings out toward Lucky Peak Lake, with coffee in a thermos and old country music playing softly through the truck speakers. The first few trips felt lonely. Then eventually they started feeling peaceful instead. That surprised him. Healing rarely arrived dramatically. Nobody woke up suddenly transformed. It happened slowly. One decent morning. Then another. Then one day you realized you'd gone 3 full hours without thinking about what happened. And somehow that felt enormous. Nathan and Claire slowly developed a rhythm co-parenting Ethan. Awkward at first. Painfully polite. Like coworkers trapped inside a strange long-term project. But over time, some of the bitterness softened around the edges. Not erased, just quieter. One evening, during a custody exchange, Ethan waddled across the driveway, holding a stuffed dinosaur upside down by the tail. Claire laughed automatically. Nathan did too. For half a second, they sounded like themselves again. Oddly enough, that hurt a little. But it also reminded Nathan of something important. Not every relationship ended because the love had been fake. Sometimes people simply damaged something beyond repair. There was a difference. Late that summer, Olivia convinced Nathan to attend a church small group for divorced adults over 40. Nathan resisted at first, then finally gave in, mostly because Olivia wouldn't stop asking. That was where he met Sophie Carter. 48 years old. School librarian. Divorced 6 years. She wore reading glasses low on her nose and laughed with her entire face instead of trying to appear elegant doing it. Nothing dramatic happened between them. No instant romance, no cinematic sparks. They simply started talking after meetings, then texting occasionally, then grabbing breakfast after church on Sundays. At their age, Nathan realized people stopped chasing fireworks all the time. Sometimes kindness felt more attractive than excitement. And after everything he survived, kindness suddenly mattered more than he ever expected. The last serious conversation Nathan and Claire had happened 2 weeks before Ethan's 2nd birthday. Claire arrived at Nathan's house just after sunset, carrying Ethan's overnight bag, while cold autumn rain tapped softly against the driveway. Ethan immediately ran past both parents the moment he got inside, chasing the old Labrador through the living room while laughing loud enough to echo through the house. Nathan watched him disappear around the corner carrying a toy dinosaur. Then he looked back at Claire standing awkwardly near the doorway. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Time had softened some things between them. Not repaired, softened. Claire looked different now. Calmer somehow. Less exhausted than she had been during the final months of their marriage. Nathan's suspected distance from Victor had helped more than she would ever admit aloud. Claire tucked loose hair behind her ear before finally speaking quietly. "Thank you." Nathan frowned slightly. "For what?" Claire glanced toward the living room where Ethan continued laughing at the dog. "For not trying to destroy me." The sentence settled heavily between them. Because the truth was, Nathan could have. There had been opportunities. He could have publicly humiliated Claire after the gala. Could have dragged the divorce into ugly court battles. Could have spent years poisoning Ethan against her. Some people probably would have. And maybe early on, Nathan even understood the temptation. But eventually he realized something important. Pain spread. Humiliation spread. Bitterness spread too. And sooner or later, someone had to decide to stop passing it around. That didn't make Claire innocent, didn't erase what happened. But Ethan deserved at least one parent who wasn't consumed by resentment. Nathan leaned quietly against the kitchen counter. "I did it for him," he admitted softly. Claire nodded with tears gathering slowly in her eyes again. "I know." Another silence followed. Not hostile this time, just sad. The kind of sadness that came from two people remembering an entire shared lifetime. Neither of them could fully hate despite everything. Claire looked around the kitchen slowly. The same refrigerator, the same old coffee maker, the same family photos Nathan never completely removed. "I really did love you," she whispered. Nathan believed her. Oddly enough, that was part of what made betrayal so complicated. Sometimes people destroyed things they genuinely loved. Nathan looked toward the living room where Ethan now sat on the carpet-building crooked block towers beside the dog. Then he looked back at Claire. "I know," he said quietly. Claire wiped her eyes quickly before forcing a small smile. "Well," she said softly, "I should probably go before he convinces the dog to eat crayons again." Nathan laughed before he could stop himself. Claire laughed too. For one brief second, they sounded almost normal again. Then reality settled gently back into place. Claire picked up her purse and moved toward the front door. Halfway there, she paused. "I hope you're happy, Nathan." He thought about Sophie, about peaceful mornings drinking coffee beside Lucky Peak Lake, about church breakfasts and slow conversations that didn't feel complicated. Then he thought about Ethan's laughter filling the house again tonight. Finally, Nathan answered honestly, "I think I'm getting there." Claire nodded once, then she quietly left. A few minutes later, Nathan sat cross-legged on the living room floor helping Ethan stack blocks into a crooked tower, while rain continued tapping softly against the windows. Ethan carefully placed one final block on top, then immediately knocked the entire tower over himself. He burst into hysterical laughter so hard he hiccuped. Nathan laughed too. Real laughter this time. And sitting there in sweatpants at 53 years old, surrounded by scattered toys and broken plastic blocks, Nathan suddenly realized something unexpected. His life hadn't ended. It had changed. Painfully, messily, but not permanently ruined. Betrayal had changed him forever. Some wounds probably always would ache a little, but people still got to choose what kind of person they became afterward. Nathan looked at Ethan smiling up at him from the carpet. Then he reached down and began helping his son build the tower again.